Hey everybody, my name's Chris Bergstrom. I'm a professional photographer living in Tokyo, Japan. And if you want to learn how to do vintage 1940s Hollywood style lighting for your photos and video, stick around because you came to the right place.
I'm Chelsea Lynn Felix. I'm a hair and makeup artist here in Tokyo, Japan. I'm here with Ashlyn today, and I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we did for her hair and makeup. So her hair today was kind of inspired by 1940s, 1950s, that Marilyn Monroe, that really beautiful, almost pinup look, not quite, but we've got this really elegant sort of pin up and then roll under, and then just pinned in with bobby pins here. For her makeup, as you may or may not know, the 40s was kind of the big boom for when makeup started happening. So very, very light with the skin tone, and then beautiful rouge colors on the cheeks and almost a matching color on the eyelids. If you'll close your eyes, Ashlyn. We have this beautiful salmon color on her eyelids, and then of course the wing-tipped eyeliner is the big number for the 40s. Eyebrows were also big in the 40s and 50s, very sharp lines. We did a little more subtle look for Ashlyn today, just to kind of focus more on the lips, the red lips, and the beautiful hairstyle. Hope you enjoy, hope you learned something today. Thanks, guys.
So if you want to get into the 1940s vintage Hollywood style lighting, first thing you need to know is that 9 times out of 10 they used hard light. It was because of the types of lights that they used, which were hot can lights like HMI type lighting, and they didn't use a lot of umbrellas or soft boxes like you see in modern day studios. So to get hard light, what you need is a small light source or a Fresnel lens. So a Fresnel lens, it has little ridges on it. It's a special type of glass that focuses the light into a very strong beam of light, creating hard shadows under the nose, under the chin, under the eyelids, whatever. So that's what you need to do. When you're trying to do something with more modern look or a softer look, then you want a large light source. So the larger the light, the softer the light. The smaller the light, the harder the light. It's pretty simple. So keep that in mind. So one of the things that you need to take into consideration when trying to do soft lighting in a studio, especially when you're using just one light, is to make sure that the light is far enough away from your subject that it not only affects the subject, but also evenly lights the background. So for these shots that I'm shooting in the studio, I have one 7-foot parabolic umbrella on the left, and since the model is either standing or laying down, I had it at about 5 feet up in the air, and this allows the big 7-foot umbrella, and it's actually feathered, so it's actually at a 90 degree to the subject, and that's just throwing all the light sideways against the side wall of the studio, and it creates very soft, pleasing light. You'll notice in the photos that the shadows along the back side and behind her are very soft, meaning there's not a hard edge around the shadow. So that's one little tip I'd recommend, is making sure that the light is far enough away. If I was to bring the light in too close, now what ends up happening is the subject will look great. It'll be very bright in between the light and the subject, but then once you get past the subject, the light starts to fall off. So remember that if the light is in close, it's going to fall off fast, meaning it's going to be nice and perfectly exposed on one side, and as it gets to the other side, it's going to be 1, 2, 3 stops darker. So the further that you bring that light out, the light depth of field, the actual depth of field within the exposure of the light, is going to get wider and wider as you move that light source further away. So that's just one quick tip. Hope you guys enjoy the photos and the instruction. We'll go over some lighting patterns, and I'll also get into some lighting setups in the studio using CGI. Stick around. All right, so I have a few different type of Fresnel lenses in my studio. One's by a company called Ashcan. It's a 150 watt LED light. And the cool thing about this LED is it actually allows you to move the LED inside of the Fresnel backwards and forwards like you used to be able to in the old days. I also have a Bowen's Fresnel 200, which only allows you to close the aperture down. So it's similar to moving it forward and back, which is the way I prefer, but it's less efficient overall because it's wasting a lot of light by closing the aperture down, so you're not getting the maximum light output. The other type of Fresnel you could use, which is a very inexpensive option, this is a NG10X, which is designed for up to 150 watt LED light, and it basically allows you to zoom out, which makes the beam a narrow beam, or zoom it in like that to make a wider beam. And again, this is actually a Fresnel lens. It has a protective coating on the front, like a little mesh to keep the glass from breaking, because it is actually real glass. And it comes with a Bowen's mount, so if you have an aperture 120D or a 300D or any type of light that takes a Bowen's mount, this will mount right to it. So that's pretty awesome. All right, so talking about 1940s Hollywood lighting, again, hard light, there's different ways that you can go about getting hard light. One of the tools you could use is one of these grid spots, anywhere from a 60-degree all the way down to a 10-degree grid spot. And what this does is when you put it inside of a 7-inch reflector that has like a Bowen's mount to attach it to your LED lights, this is going to create a tunnel of light. And as you can see through it only in the forward direction. So these are very handy to get hard shadows under the chin, under the nose, and all that good stuff. But if you don't have grid spots, another thing you could use is just a bare speed light, because like I said before, the size of the light source relative to the subject determines how hard or soft the light is. So if you have a big 7-foot umbrella, that's going to create very soft light. Just like an overcast day with the clouds, it's very soft. Now, if you go to a speed light, which is very small in comparison to your subject, it's just like having no clouds in the sky, no diffusion, and it's just basically a pinpoint of light up in the sky. So next time you're out and about walking the streets, pay attention to the shadows around you. Look at how soft light from clouds from an overcast day creates virtually no shadow around you. And when it's a full clear sky day and you have the sun blazing down on you, you're going to see the very hard edge of the shadow, whether it's on your face, on the ground. Same thing applies with speed lights and studio lighting. So one of the things that I like to use is LED constant lighting for my Hollywood style lighting. And the reason is that it allows the pupils to be smaller because the eyes are actually seeing the light. So one of the downsides to using speed lights in the studio for 1940s Hollywood lighting is that the pupils will be dilated because your studio is going to be pretty dark compared to the surrounding environment, or at least that's how it should be. So one thing I recommend is using constant lighting, whether it's LEDs or hot can lights, tungsten, fluorescent, whatever you can fit into your light fixture to create small pupils instead of wide dilated ones. And that's pretty much how they did it back in the old days, was used constant lighting, and then their pupils would be smaller. All right, so the 1940s Hollywood lighting, one of the important looks that you're going to need is to get the butterfly light. And by butterfly light, if you tilt your chin down just slightly, you see the little shadow underneath her nose. This is called the butterfly that sits under the nose. You don't want it to go too far down. Tilt your face down more and more and more. You don't want it to get so far down that it starts to get close to the edge of the lip. And also the light should be pretty much straight on to your subject to give you that perfect butterfly light right under the nose. So let's go ahead and take some shots and see what we can do with this light. All right, so one thing I like to do is always talk to the model and make sure that they feel comfortable. And so chin, there you go, perfect. And then you're just gonna try to connect your eyes with the camera lens. 3, 2, 1. And watch that hand, it's kind of sticking out right there. There you go. 3, 2, 1. And very glamorous, yep. And now try to take both hands and put them behind your head. Very, there you go. And a lot of times I will count 3, 2, 1, and that's to make sure that the model doesn't blink. All right, let's go ahead and relax. So now if you see in the photos here, you're going to see the butterfly light underneath the nose, the shadow that's underneath the nose, and it's very hard light. So one of the types of lighting that they used to use back in the 1940s and even up into the 50s and 60s was hard light, and they used Fresnel lenses, and I'm using a Bowen's Fresnel 200 that gives you this very crisp light, and it's actually, the focus is adjustable to make a wide beam or a smaller beam of light. All right, so that was the first look. Now what I'm going to do is go ahead and turn on the hair light, and a lot of times with the hair light in the background, I have it boomed over the subject and behind, straight behind the subject, and it's going to blow out some of the highlights in the hair. And a lot of new photographers, they're always, trained never to blow out any highlights, always preserve them. But do yourself a favor and go back and look at those old photos from the 1940s with George Harrell and any of the old photographers from Paramount and the old movie studios, and you will see that they blow out the highlights very frequently, especially with blonde hair and lighter colored hair. So don't be afraid to blow out those highlights, and I'll also talk about some other equipment that I use to give it a very realistic effect for the 1940s. Difference. All right, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and turn on this background hair light. And you should be able to see how it's creating an edge light around the side of the hair. All right, so one thing that I like to use to really undigitize, not make the photos look so digital, because obviously back in the old days they used big sheets of film, is I use a Tiffin, and this is a black Pro Mist, the quarter strength. And this basically adds kind of a soft filter, but not the kind of cheesy 1980s soft filter effect. This is more like the vintage Hollywood style. So I'm going to go ahead and attach this to my lens and let you see the difference before we switch to the next lighting setup. All right, and 3, 2, 1. All right, so as you can see, the effect now, it's less digital looking, it's not so sharp. I mean, you still have the sharp detail, but it just adds kind of a mood and a look that you're not going to get with normal digital cameras. Very good. Let me get a couple wider shots. Good. All right, just bring your hand up towards your shoulder somehow. There you go. Yeah, that's perfect. Good. Now, I shoot with the Fujifilm X-T2. One of the things I have is facial recognition on with eye detect, so it's a lot faster trying to focus in the studio. All right, just looking straight on again. There we go. I just really want to emphasize the butterfly effect. So make sure your arms aren't squeezed in against your body just a little bit, and stick your elbow out slightly like that one. There you go. And you can turn your body towards the camera, and then that way you push your arm out just a little bit. So it should be very natural feeling. I know that's weird to why are you touching your shoulder, but what I'm trying to get to is where you're going to bring in, maybe grab the necklace. There you go. And then bring your chin into your shoulder, and there, that's good. All right. And again, just bring your elbow out. There you go. And 3, 2, 1. A little bit less turn with the body. Right there, perfect. 3, 2, 1. And I'm getting a nice flare from the hair light. The hair light has a grid spot on it, so if I aim it more down, it's like creating a tunnel of light. So I know you can't really see it, but if I'm out here, I'm outside of the light. And now I'm starting to come in. You can see the edges of my fingers as the light is now only out to a certain amount. So it's creating a circle of light. I'm trying to keep it off of the shoulders too much, just really focusing on the hair. All right, just a few more tips as we go along. So with my 56 millimeter f1.2, I am shooting at f1.2 to give a very shallow depth of field. If you look at a lot of the old Hollywood portraits, you're gonna see there's a lot of out of focus backgrounds going on. All right, so the next lighting setup, this is called loop lighting. And if you look at the, go ahead and turn your face right there. The light is at a 45 or just shy of 45-degree angle to the model. And it casts the shadow that creates a little loop right around the edge of the nose. Now, if she were to go ahead and turn even more, we start to get into Rembrandt lighting, but this is going to be just solely loop lighting, and then we'll move on to the next look. All right. All right, perfect. A little bit of a smile, but like a devious smile. And chin just slightly up, right there, good. Okay, I'm gonna come in and get a nice close headshot. 3, 2, 1, good. And again, I'm looking at those highlights in the background. So now we've got butterfly light when she turns her face towards the light. And then now we've got Rembrandt lighting, and now we're back to loop lighting. So in a matter of like 3 seconds, you can have 3 different looks. All right, good. All right, so this next lighting setup, this is called short light. So we've got the light at 90 degrees to the subject, shining this direction, and her face is kind of facing this way. So it's creating shadow on this side of the face, and all the light is on the short side of the face. So let's take some photos and see how this lighting setup looks. A little bit more that way. There we go. 3, 2, 1. Now just spread your hands out just a little bit. There you go. 3, 2, 1. All right, so when you're doing broad light and short light, you got to make sure, especially with the short light, if she turns her face where she's at right now, it starts to become Rembrandt. If she turns it back, now it's a little bit less right there. Now it's loop lighting. And if you go back, now we're looking at short light because you have all of this shadow on the side of the face. So hold that look right there. Really strike a pose if you can, like with your hips. There we go. And, yep, good. 3, 2, 1. Very glamorous. 3, 2, 1. And always when you're cropping anything in camera, make sure you don't crop at a joint. Always crop at an in-between part. So in between the joint here, at the waist, on the leg, and of course we don't want to crop off at the neck either because that looks really weird. All right, 3, 2, 1. Oh, let me get that again. Right there, right there. Now bring both hands up again. Good. Okay. All right, so the next lighting setup that we're going to do, we're actually going to leave the light at the 90-degree angle, and we're going to create Rembrandt light. Now what Rembrandt light is it's side lighting. You extend the loop out until it connects to the shadow on the other side of the face, creating a triangle of light. So if you look at Rembrandt's old paintings, he always used to use like a one light source coming from the ceiling, and that would create the Rembrandt effect. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. All right, so to create Rembrandt light, we're gonna have her bring her face back towards the camera until a little bit less, right. Now chin up just a little bit, and now bring your face back, right there. All right, so we've got a nice little triangle going, and it's extreme Rembrandt lighting. I'm gonna show you how to modify this to get a little different effect. And chin up just a little bit, there you go. I just wanna get a little bit of catch lights in the eyes. That's good. All right, back this way. Yep. And now chin up more. I know it feels weird, but it looks good in the photos. Now slightly back. Nope, a little bit less, right there. Now chin up. I want you looking up towards the ceiling. Good. Even higher with the light. And now chin back towards this direction. But now looking up, up, up. There we go. And back again to the right, your left. Good. Chin up higher. Looking up at the ceiling. Good. And a nice little smile. And chin back this way again. Chin up, 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 and back to your left. Up higher again. There we go. 3, 2, 1. And slightly this direction, right there. So that's kind of loop lighting right there, but if we bring it back and chin up and back again. Right there we go. All right, so now I'm going to actually move the light at a 45-degree angle. Perfect. Now bring your face back. Keep coming back. Keep going that way. All right, now bring your chin back slightly. Back, right there. I'm just trying to get that triangle of light in the eyes, or on your cheek rather. So take your head now and tilt it this way. There we go. 3, 2, 1. 3, 2, 1. Good. There we go. Now looking up like you're seeing something in the clouds, right? You're daydreaming. Chin off to the side more, and chin down. All right, tilt your head that way. Good. Just looking for that little bit of light catching. And then look at the camera. Chin up slightly. Good. And now just like do your hair up like, there you go. And looking directly at the camera. Okay. Good. Just slightly. There you go. Okay. All right, so let's go to the next look. And now you can see, if you look really close, what I'm going to try to do now is bring the light up overhead, shining down, and have her looking up at it to really get the extension of the shadow from the eyelashes. So let's try that look, and we'll go to the final lighting setup, and we'll get some Photoshop editing done, and then we'll wrap up the video, and hopefully you learned a lot. Stop. All right, so the last thing that I want to show you is how you can get creative with this 1940s hard, light using a Fresnel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the model looking up towards the light, looking down, looking off to the side, just using all of the different lighting patterns with the light really in close at a 45-degree angle, and we're going to see how you can dramatically change the look. I'm also looking for those shadows of the eyelashes coming down, especially when she's looking straight forward. You're going to go ahead and see that in the photos. And again, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm going to also show you how to do the Photoshop editing, which is really important in today's photography because it's like the darkroom of the digital age. All right, so I'm really trying to exaggerate those shadows underneath the eyes. I'm adjusting my shutter speed. So since we're using constant lighting, we don't have to worry about our aperture controlling the flash exposure. All right, let me get in really close. All right, and then, yeah, just work your way up with your eyes and your face. A little bit more. Good. Looking straight up at the light. And can you bring your right hand into the, like up by your hair? There you go. Very soft. And looking up again a little bit higher. And you can stop looking at the light directly, look towards the camera now, and you can bring your hand down. Good. All right, less chin down. There you go, nice. Looking over the camera, looking up over, like you see a bird behind me or something. Keep looking up higher. Good. Just getting those catch lights in the eyes. Again, I'm still getting that nice rim light with the hair light behind her. It's making her glow from the background. All right, so those are a lot of different looks that you can get. Another thing that you could do is introduce a third light to cast light onto the background. I like this with just the very dramatic bright hair, nice exposure on the face, black and white. It really makes the subject pop out from the background. Other than that, this is 1940s vintage Hollywood lighting using two lights, one with a grid spot in the background and one with a Fresnel on the subject that's adjustable. They do make other Fresnel lenses. I'll talk more about that as we get through this video. But again, let's go into Photoshop and check out the next effects. All right, so here we are in Lightroom, and the first thing I normally do after I import my photos is I go ahead and try to pick which ones I want to work on editing. So I've already kind of picked a few, and I'm gonna just go ahead and start rating them. I have the caps lock key on, so that way as I hit the rating, it automatically advances to the next photo. So I'm just going through here, looking at all the photos. That was pretty good. That looks pretty vintage. Alright, so I'm sometimes going back and forth, and I'm just looking at her expression and trying to figure out which photos I want to edit first. Alright, I like that one. That one's really good. And what you're seeing here is all the photos straight out of camera, so these have not been retouched at all. Alright, and I was shooting in black and white on my camera, so Lightroom hasn't caught up to changing the preview. There we go. And since they're raw files, they will switch back to full color because it's shot in raw. Alright, let me go back through these. So this is one of the ones that I've already edited, and I've got to figure out which file that is. All right, so that's this one right here. So I'm going to go ahead and select that one. All right, you see the super shallow depth of field. That was kind of ridiculous, a little too shallow. All right, so we've picked the Hollywood style lighting photo that we're going to edit. Now I just have to find the one that I'm going to show you for the pinup. So this is actually the final image here, and that's 7789. So this is the before photo. So let me go to my filters. I'm going to go to rated, and now I've got all the files ready to rock and roll. All right, so I'm going to edit this one here and this one. I'm going to export. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and export them as a JPEG, sRGB. I'm not really too concerned about having a ton of color space, like with Adobe Color or whatnot. So while it's exporting, go ahead and open Photoshop. All right, so here we go. We've got the two photos. Let's start out with the Hollywood pinup lighting. So for this photo, I'm just going to click auto contrast. It's just going to brighten the image to what the values that it should be as far as the exposure. So I don't have to do any curves or anything like that to adjust the exposure. That's the quick and easy way. Now, one of the things that I see is a problem, which is pretty much the only problem I see in this photo, is the hair. So you see all these little stray hairs. In real life, when you see somebody, it doesn't really look that bad. But when you put a hair light on somebody, it really accentuates all those little pieces of hair. So I'm going to show you how I would take care of editing this. So I'm going to zoom in on the hair, and you can see it's already shallow depth of field, but I'm just going to use pretty much the clone stamp tool. So I hit S on the keyboard, and I'm going to basically sample. I'll start up here, probably right here, and I'm just going to start painting this away. And I use a soft edge brush. And then the one thing that you want to be careful of is to not make them look like they have a helmet on. So when you do this, you got to be very careful not to make it look too perfect, if that makes any sense. Just do it just enough to where it doesn't look distracting. All right. So I'm using the bracket keys to make the cursor or the mouse smaller. So I'm doing some fine details in here. I don't want to get too crazy, make it too big or too small. Alright, there we go. So that's pretty simple. All I'm doing is just painting this out. And again, my goal here is to make sure that they don't look like they have some kind of helmet on. So when you're hearing that clicking, that's me adjusting the bracket keys to make the mouse bigger or smaller, the mouse cursor. All right, so I have to resample. I'm noticing it's getting, the outline color isn't really matching. So let me fix this. So I'll start down here. And so whenever I clone stamp, I try to keep the sampled area close to where it is that I'm trying to sample into. So if I want to sample this area down here up to this area, I want to make sure I don't sample from like way over here or way up here, because the color is going to be so different. So I'm going to start to come out here, and I'm going to make the brush bigger because I want it to kind of blend more. Alright, so now here's what I will do to fix this, because I'm having a little bit of trouble making it match. I'm going to go to the patch tool, and I'm just going to select this little problem area, and then I'm just going to drag it down to another area. And then what Photoshop does is it looks at the area that you're sampling, it looks at the area that you're sampling to, and it will blend it and match it. So that's all I'm doing there. Again, just trying to make it not look noticeable. There, that's good. Alright, so then I just got to do the other side, and we will be almost finished with the hair. Oops. Alright, so to sample an area, all you have to do is hit the Alt key, and it will turn it into this little cursor with like a crosshair in it, and then you just click where you want it to sample, like right here, and of course that would sample that area over here. You can also do it with skin. You can see right here, obviously you don't want to go lighter, but here we go. Little spot right there. Alright, so I think that looks pretty good. So let me go ahead and zoom back out. A couple little stray hairs here on the face that we're going to have to deal with. Nothing wrong with moles, but I'm going to go ahead and basically retouch these. So next thing I would do in a photo like this is I would use the spot healing brush, and I'm going to make my brush pretty small. I'm just going to go in through here and retouch the skin. So when we actually shot this, the photo had, or the lens had the Tiffin Black Pro Mist filter on it, and so that gave it kind of like a soft filter effect, very, very soft. Doesn't look super digital. Alright, so I'm going to go back to the patch tool here. I'm just going to select this part and resample, and you can see that really fixed that little issue. It's really not anything wrong, it's just the shadows were bugging me right there. See, I just put a little bit, another shadow that does not look good, so I'm going to undo that and go back to spot healing brush, and I'm just going to click all these moles out of there. I'm not going to get rid of all of them, just the ones that kind of are a little distracting. Alright. And again, I'm still using the spot healing brush. I'm not in the patch tool right now. I actually switched over to the little Band-Aid spot healing brush tool. And let's get rid of that. Let's see if I can get rid of this whole area. All right, I'm going to go back to the patch tool. And just select this little spot right here. And I'm just looking for a nice clean area. Let Photoshop do all the blending. All right, that looks pretty good. All right, so next thing we need to do to make this look vintage and old is we're going to convert it to black and white. Now there's a couple different options. It really depends on what I'm feeling like during the specific day that I'm editing, but I'll either use On One Effects 10 or I'll use DxO's Film Pack 5. So let's go ahead and all right, so I do use plugins. I'm not ashamed to say that. I could go through here and edit all day long, doing different techniques. But what I'm trying to show you is a quick and easy way to make your photos look old school, vintage Hollywood. And now what you could do is you could just click on them. Of course, that looks like it's really old because you can see all the film grain. And then I'm just going to hit the right arrow key and it will preview them for me. So I like that. That looks really clean, but it still looks a little too modern, too digital. I don't want to get too crazy with the film grain, but I want it to look a little bit nostalgic. All right, so this right here, this preset is called Darkroom. I think that looks pretty good. I'm just going to keep on going. Delta usually looks pretty good too, but I don't like what it's doing to her skin on this particular preset, and the background's getting kind of blotchy looking. Okay, no. I'm probably going to end up using the darkroom, and I'll show you a couple other presets that I like to use in Nik Color Effects, which apparently DxO just bought, and they're about to release or have released the new version of it. I was still using the old version even on OS 10, OS X, my Mac. So you can see what the previews look like on a lot of these black and white filters. I'm just going to go back to Darkroom, and I'm going to click Save. All right, so there we have it. That is pretty much a finished photo. I don't really have anything else to do here. You can see the butterfly light. The light was straight overhead, casting this nice shadow underneath the chin. We got the hair light, which back in the 1940s, even 1930s, a lot of the photographers would really just go nuclear on their hair and blow all the highlights out. And so I'm not afraid if a little bit of detail is lost in here. It's just meant to look like a halo around her head. All right, so let me undo that. I'm going to go into Nik Color Effects.